for working group stubs? Nope. Thank you very much. I probably should have triggered you on that one to do that a minute ago. So welcome to this week. We've got an agenda that looks very similar to last week. So we'll be doing an update on the PRs for working group stubs, an update on identifying working group leads, and any other business.
Hello, great, David. And here's Stevenson. So we have quorum.
Excellent. So with an update on the PRs for working group stubs, I did a bit on the Paketo side and tagged in Amelia on that one, and there were a few edits and chops and changes in there, and I forgot we're not using British English, so I will make sure that I correct that in future. So that's looking good on my side. I think the main thing there is actually, it's just pushing it along a little bit further with those replacing the TBDs, I think, with some nominations in there.
Lee, which working group PR were you mentioning there?
Paketo.
Oh, Paketo Run, right.
Yeah, as the nice sort of pretty self-contained one.
Great. I had a chance to work with Amelia a bit on the app runtime platform working group PR. We got in and then reviewed an initial set of goals and scope, and added a non-goal around keeping those kind of domain concerns for the working group focused on the CF app runtime. So where they, things like networking could potentially extend down to lower layers. We're making sure that the focus of the working group is not having them go outside of what we thought of as serving the apps and the app runtime, and system components to the extent that they need it there. And then we'd been working on identifying additional approvers and potentially lead candidates there. Amelia is pretty committed, and she certainly has VMware support to form the leadership in that working group. So I think actually we probably want to do a set of checks with the people that have been nominated for approver roles there, to make sure that they would want to have the responsibility that comes with that. Because we, as we discussed before, we did make those amendments to the rules to spread out some of the issue and PR triage and processing across the approvers for particular areas. So I think there's that. And then the other thing that we had done was more explicitly define the sub areas within the working group that were aligned to groups of those subsystems and technical assets. So I think that also seems aligned with getting the sign off from potential approvers that they would want to at least initially have that level of commitment. So I'm feeling pretty good about the shape of the app runtime platform working group. I think that maybe, with those few other tweaks, we could get to the point where it's no longer a draft PR. It's just a PR that we want to have final discussion over and then get up and running, which is, I think, nicely timed with, I think Jan gets back from his break in time for the next TOC session. So that's maybe a goal for that. Let's get that ready for real approval and then get it up and running.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good. I mean, looking over it, I think the only thing is just to get feedback from those that are being volunteered.
That's basically what I need to do on the foundational infrastructure working group, is what you just said you just did, Eric. So I'll try to do exactly what you did. Get some time, work with Ruben, who's a good candidate for lead, is nominated himself, and he's got our support, at least to spend the time on doing the role. So I'm see if I can get his help to just finalize the mission of it and break it into sub areas. I like breaking it into sub areas. It'll be very easy to do in that foundational infrastructure area. And then he's made all this list of potential approvers by commits. And we need to draw a line somewhere and be like, well, we think these, whatever, 8 or 10 people are likely good first approver candidates. Let's make sure they want the job and then finalize the PR. I'm on vacation next week though. And it might be actually hard for me to join this time. So you won't see me probably till the one after.
Okay. Cool. And I think I should probably just grab some time with Emily and Brian to perform a similar thing on the Paketo side. I'll look to get that done before next week. Hello, Ryan. Okay. So I think that's looking quite good then on that front. Now, just having a look at the initial set of working groups, we need to have a look through that. That's one, and just a quick sort. Because from memory, we did have something that we were leaving open for a week, and my mind has just gone blank as to which one it was.
Oh, we had that very minor PR from Angela. So actually, as part of checking up on some things right before this, I noted on the PR that it was open for a week with quorum approval from the TOC and no dissent. So I merged it in.
Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, cool. So that saves me trying to find the one that I'm looking for that I'm not going to find.
Right, it's going to be invisible now.
Yeah, well, it's moved over to the closed tab.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think that's pretty much wraps up on that first point. So in terms of identifying leads, how do we feel that's going throughout all the stubs?
Yeah, I think we are missing a lead on the deployments working group, as we talked about before. We've asked for some board help because somebody said that they had ideas before on a previous board meeting for one of the other vendors to provide some ownership there, and that just hasn't materialized yet. So we've asked for that. I think Eric and I definitely feel pretty strongly that we want to really leave space for non-VMware leads as well. But we also have some groups that we are excited about having one of the leads on. And so we're just trying to find the right candidates at VMware for each of the groups. Like we said, we've got Amelia and Ruben nominated, but I'm really excited about both of them. I'm trying to find a candidate that I'm really excited about for the app experiences or the interfaces, whatever we call that working group. I'm sure we'll find somebody. There's a lot of possible folks who could do the role. It's a pretty broad working group. The problem is these groups when the groups are big, you really need to be quite good at handling a lot of different things abroad. It's a broad leadership role. The project leads roles were easier to find candidates for, right? Because they were just very targeted. Yeah. And you could have somebody who's just really good at and excited about networking or really excited about containers or whatever, just lead that one project. So anyway, we're looking for candidates there. I have a team working on cloud services broker. I think one of them might be a good fit for the services ecosystem services. I can't remember the names of these working groups, but you got it. The services one, I think I'd be able to find an interesting candidate there. So those are the two leads that I'm trying to track down. And I sort of have yet to see a lead show up that isn't a VMware candidate. But I'm excited about it, and where Eric and I are both watching. We're hoping. We also know that a lot of the SCPers are on vacation, so like they're not going to be rallying leads, and we don't need to close this down right away.
Yeah.
So we can wait until we know whether there's going to be more participation before locking in the leads.
Okay. I did catch up with Dan over at Engineer Better, and he's got a couple of people that are interested, one of which has been identified in one of the other PRs, which is Mickey, and Andy is the other one, whose name just escapes me, which is bizarre, bearing in mind we sat next to each other for nearly 2 years.
Grove?
No, it's not. I've just had a complete.
Is Andy Payne?
It is Andy Payne.
There
Okay.
you go.
Yes, thank you. That's going to look terrible on YouTube. I apologise to you, Andy, already. Yeah, so they both seem reasonably keen. So, yeah, hopefully there'll be some non-SAP people.
Lee, did you get a sense of which working groups Dan thought they'd be most aligned to participating in, and what level of leadership they might be interested in there?
So with Mickey, I think it was the networking side was a particular strong one there. With Andy, there's a couple of options there. So there is runtime and interfaces where it could fit into either.
Okay, great. Obviously, we don't need to have exclusive assignments of anyone to these areas, but getting an idea of where they'd be most likely to participate early on would be, that's definitely helpful. Helps us nail down those initial sets of approvers for the working group areas.
Okay, cool.
I also had a chance to ping Wayne at Stark and Wayne yesterday, but I haven't heard back from him yet about any interest from Stark and Wayne in participating more officially in governance and the new working group structures.
I guess that'll just arrive when it arrives in terms of some info. Okay. Do we have anything else really on the lead identification side?
I think, and I guess with Picato, that's really already fully formed. So we've got Emily and Ryan as the level of leadership there. So, but it sounds like that along with the app runtime platform is basically on track for final charter approval in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Okay, cool. So it looks like we're moving on to any other business already, which is going to mean a fairly short meeting, I think, this week.
I don't think I had any other topics to bring up. I think we've all been pretty focused on just nailing down working group stuff.
Yep.
Anyone else on the call have anything that they want to bring up? Can have our open forum time.
Yeah.
Eric, you and I talked briefly about this. I'm wondering, so I'm really interested in what we should do for the next operating system that Cloud Foundry supports.
Right.
And this is like, it's a technical topic, and I'm like, I'll wait until there's like some space in the TSC. The reason to discuss it is that it spans 3 working groups, I believe. So like, I don't know what the TOC's involvement is. There's some work going on in the stem cell group to try out like a focal stem cell, which is interesting. But I would personally, I prefer to make a play for the longer term stem cell, the one that comes out in 2204 JJ. And the reason that I think we have to be careful because we don't want to run this as an isolated play. If we move forward to focal stem cells, but we're still on bionic root file systems, we're not winning here. So like this affects the build packs group. This affects the root file system, right? And this affects obviously not only the stem cell, but all the Cloud Foundry software that runs on it. So I think my question isn't to you all, what should we do? My question is, what is meta question of how we execute a technical broad cutting decision like that? Presumably like we make a document that describes the trade-offs, the two options, and then solicit community input and get everybody aligned around. There's a discussion going on here. And then we pick a time and make a decision. Is that the probable meta way that we would achieve this?
Sounds pretty sensible to me. I mean, it's the sort of thing that I'd look for, kind of the request for comment type approach. And then look for that as a method, the main method for community involvement.
All right, sounds good. I wonder, I'm happy to drive that one. I'm excited about it. And I think I'm aware of all the places that it touches. I'm mostly trying to shut it down so it doesn't happen accidentally in one area without any thought towards the other areas that it affects.
I mean, the really big and exciting thing for me about taking that leap forward to JJ is it gives a much nicer window when we're falling off the end of support. So I think that's a much better place in which to be.
Right, agreed. I think the move is going to be a big deal personally. And the reason I think it's a big deal is not a stem cell reason. It's people have to move their apps over to the new root file system, and the apps don't always boot up. So you can't just be like, and everyone today is on JJ or Focal, because like 99% of the apps come up, but the 1% that don't come up means that like operators don't tend to do this move for people. They give people a large amount of time. They give developers a large amount of time to like make the move, and then you got to retool the build packs to make sure that they work. And I guess we have 2 copies that we'll have to go back and remind ourselves what we did last time, and then maybe try to make it easier on people, but also like remember the process. So I think it's going to be a huge move outside of the stem cell, and I want to give us as much runway as possible, aka JJ. It also means we have to move very fast, right? When JJ comes out, we'll have like 1 year of left of bionic support, and so like, and if you want to provide a lot of overlap where people can run both, like you got to move relatively quickly. So I'm going to start preparing everyone who's working on these open source projects to like be prepared to do a move. If we can get alignment around this plan, be prepared to do a move next summer, and be prepared that it's going to take some time.
Yeah, I think having just bringing all these concerns out into the open and having a proposal that we can all reason over and discuss sounds great. And identifying all of those details and coordination points, because you're right, David, that this is going to cut across foundational infrastructure, Pacato and CF build packs, and app runtime deployments. So that's at least 4 working groups, and then all the components probably need some sort of tweak for the new stem cell line, just to make sure that their BOSH releases are working all right.
I think a fairly critical thing as part of that as well is going to be publicly accessible CICD pipeline, so that being able to track the status is visible across the wide community.
Yeah, and we have some of that started with that BOSH stem cell thing. So that's exciting. We can continue that. I don't think we're going to end up with all of the Cloud Foundry components that are open source that are moving over to whatever the new stem cell line is, having public CI/CD. I think that would be like a great end state that involves probably more money than the foundation has, and a ton of work to move over, right? So like we want to be judicious about like move it when we can. If it's relatively stable and we're not touching it very much, and we don't want to go do work in it, maybe don't move it. I don't know. It also is going to involve conversations about GitHub Actions versus Concourse, and other alternatives, which I'm very interested in too. And I also, it's one of those things where people might look to us on the TSC to either provide a ruling, like you have to do this, or guidance at least, right? Around like, how do I decide whether to use foundational infrastructure for whatever? How do I decide whether to, you know, do all this stuff? So I think they're going to be looking to us, and this is a technical oversight council. So in theory, we could make technical decisions that are broad across all the product portfolio, but we disempower people to make local decisions that make more sense in that case. So at a minimum, I think they're going to want technical guidance around when to move over to various things and how much divergence is acceptable.
Yep, that sounds like exactly the reason why we're here.
Right, I know. I'm like really excited about technical process around like large decisions like the stem cell line, the operating system base file system line, like the commit process changing, like CICD, like GitHub projects versus issues. There's a lot of like potential standardizations we should do, and it'll be fun to figure out how many of them make actual sense to try to push, and how many of them are more effort than they're worth in terms of value.
Cool.
Ryan, since we have you on the call, am I right that we'll have to do build packs work too when you change operating systems? Like, it's not reasonable to assume that the build packs are going to just work on the new operating system.
Yeah, we'll have to basically recompile a bunch of assets against the new operating system just to make sure everything links correctly. But we're playing some more than just Ubuntu as an operating system on Paketo. So we already have plans for being able to do this for like multiple different types of operating systems. Yeah.
I think this is an interesting decision point too, about like, are we going to do Paketo build pack somehow back into Cloud Foundry and that's all you get on the new stack? Or are we going to then take the old build packs and can make them work again on the new stack?
Yeah, that is interesting. It's maybe also worth exploring whether there are, I know that we had a often rocky transition for especially platform teams with the CF Linux FS2 to FS3 transition a few years ago, in part because of the fairly crude mechanisms to manage the stack within a single environment. And I wonder if there is an opportunity for some enhancements to that model, or if there's any alignment to incorporating cloud native build packs as a supported build pack system in CF Foundry VMs that would help mitigate some of those challenges that we saw last time, largely associated, I think, with the that fairly uniform rollout and then removal of the stack across an environment. There's basically no way to say like, I need an exemption because I haven't, like, you want to move this version forward that's going to get rid of the stack system wide, and there's no way for me to have a few apps that sit outside of that while keeping the vast majority that have already moved over, or that got pushed over, keeping them from regressing and falling back to the old stack line.
Yeah, it's avoiding the cliff edge.
Yeah,
right. And because it's the base file system, right? It just like everything just fails catastrophically, right? If the base file system is gone, you just can't do anything, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we'll like try the new stack, and if it works, the app launches. It's like, nope, you're done. You're just totally done. I guess I'm not. Yeah, I think the only mistake we made was forcing it to be ripped out. As long as you allow people to run it in an unsupported way, like if they don't have a supported Bionic version anymore in there, then that's fine. They're just running without security patches for a while until they can get things together, right? I think the solution is just let you do something that doesn't make sense if you really need to from a security perspective until you have the apps moved over. But maybe it's like investing in tooling to help move apps over in bulk, or maybe it's like you can upload a stack using the Cloud Foundry API or something, so you can put the stack in yourself. I assume we've thought about stacks self-service for a while and just decided not to because they're so large and they need to be distributed so broadly.
Yeah, I think there might even be some operations in Cloud Controller that lets you manipulate the set of stack records. But the hard part then is actually getting the bits out through the deployment, which we still currently do with the Bosch release. But if depending on how the Picado and other Cloud Native build packs could be incorporated into the whole image management system for CF on VMs, maybe that like if they're able to bring that base OS layer with them, then maybe that removes that as an area of concern. But yeah, I think that's going to get down into the the technical details of what's possible and what makes sense in terms of incorporating Cloud Native build packs.
These are really fun technical discussions that are getting quite specific. This is like what I do all day. I love talking about this stuff. We're definitely abusing the TOC meeting at this point, but it's been quite fun. If you all want to talk more technical stuff, less political, more technical work anytime, that would be fun.
Well, I mean, it is part of the bigger picture, so I don't think it is. I think it is part of our remit.
Yeah, but we're getting into like a specific working group's details
True.
at some point, right? We're like,
Right.
how should we do
Well,
root file systems exactly?
Yeah, they're not here,
Yeah.
so we'll
Fair
decide for them
enough.
unproductively.
Okay. Do we have anything else?
Nope.
No. Well, in which case, well, it seems sensible to gain half an hour back.
Sounds good, folks.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, and see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye now.